We will start with agenda item 1, minutes, and that's to confirm the minutes of the last meeting held on the 17th of November 2021. Are those agreed? Agreed. Thank you. I will sign those later. Agenda item 2, any declarations of interest, please? No. Thank you. Agenda item 3, public participation, there is none. Agenda item 4, announcements. By the Mayor, I have none. By the Chief Executive?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to announce that there will be 3 by-elections taking place on Thursday, the 3rd of February 2022 for the following wards: Borough Council Boxmoor Ward, Borough Council Berkhamsted West Ward, Berkhamsted Town Council West Ward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And by the group leaders, any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Williams.
Apologies, Mr. Mayor, on behalf of Councillor Binder, Peter and Councillor Jan Madden.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I apologise for Councillor Pringle, McDowell, Link, Wilkie, Townsend, Hobson, Stevens, England, Hollinghurst, Barry Mears.
Thank you, Councillor Tyndall. We now move on to agenda item 4.4, the council leader and members of the cabinet to present their reports, please. Councillor Williams, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got no items under this section of the agenda. Happy to take questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Williams? Sorry. Councillor Symington, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Williams, at the last full council meeting, we agreed a mutually agreed motion to write to the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Chief Constable, the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary with regard to the motion, Violence Against Women and Girls. That was circulated to members, for which thank you very much. And I understand there's been one reply from the Home Secretary's office. I wondered if you'd received any other replies to that letter. Thank you.
No, Mr. Mayor, I've only received the one reply that was sent to members. I wasn't 100% certain from that whether it was in response to the letter that went to the Prime Minister or the Home Secretary. It didn't make it clear whether it had been forwarded from the Prime Minister's office to the Home Office, or whether that one reply from the government covered both of those letters, because they were identical letters. In relation to the Chief Constable and Police and Crime Commissioner, I've not yet had a response.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary? Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies, everyone. My supplementary question is, in view of the fact that there have been a number of, at least 2 prosecution cases against officers in Hertfordshire, which pertain to crimes that would fall under the Violence Against Women and Girls, I wondered if it's possible, or if the leader would consider writing this letter and asking for a response. Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yes, I'm happy to do so. I'll chase up the letter, although I do believe the Chief Constable and the Police and Crime Commissioner have made some announcements on the subject under discussion.
Thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Williams? Councillor Adeleke, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it was announced tonight by the government that they are going to relax COVID rules. Perhaps it may be a bit too early to put this on you, leader of the council. But what plans have we got in place with regards to staff returning back to forum? And secondly, in terms of health and safety, given the fact that this COVID may probably not go away, how do we guarantee, even if the staff do return back to forum, their safety in terms of meeting with members of the public? And will there be in place, given that they've been away for nearly 2 years, coming back into the forum, whether there be some sort of help and counseling for those that may find it difficult to readjust in time?
I'm not sure I can give a detailed answer to that question, Mr. Mayor. There's quite a lot in there, and as Councillor Adeleke said, the announcement from government was only this afternoon. Clearly, they are saying that returning to work and wearing of face coverings, returning to work are no longer going to be mandatory items under legislation, but they will be discretionary, and it will be for employers and employees to consider how best they want people to return to the office if that's the case. We've always been clear, and my conversations with the Chief Executive have always been clear, that returning to normal office practices pre-pandemic is not something that we see in the short term certainly being something that we can do. As you said, we've still got to live with the fact that the virus is going to be around in various forms for some time. And indeed, pandemic or not, I think we have to acknowledge that working practices have changed. There is more opportunity for remote working. So the opportunity to have less staff in the office and to maintain all of the sort of precautionary measures that we have around social distancing and sanitising and hand washing and having less people in the office, those opportunities to work in a different way will continue to be with us and to be taken advantage of. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any other questions for Councillor Williams? No? Then we will move on to the report from Councillor Banks, please.
Sorry about that delay. I'm just trying to sort out the microphone. Just picking up on Councillor Adeleke's point and Councillor Women's response, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to open up by turning first to regulatory services and confirm and advise members that the environmental health teams are now focusing its attention on supporting self-isolating, workplace outbreaks and working with community partnership teams to support the vaccination programme. It goes without saying, and noting the Prime Minister's announcement today, that I hope that we will all join together in playing our part to drive down infection rates in order to protect each other, safeguard the NHS and avoid further infections and, dare I say, deaths by committing to the vaccination programme, respecting space, hand washing and wearing face coverings where appropriate. Turning to public space protection order and littering enforcement pilot, I'm sure members will be pleased to have an update. In December, there were 394 fixed penalty notices issued. 343 of those were for littering offences. The remaining 50 were for breaches of the borough-wide dog control PSPO and the Hemel Town specific PSPO. Officers have been working with district partners to ensure that all wards of the borough are visited frequently and at least monthly in every area, even if there are low littering or PSPO complaints. Turning to community, as members are aware, an email was sent out just before Christmas as a reminder of the safeguarding training that we can all access. Please contact the Community Safety and Safeguarding generic email box if you have any questions or concerns. I'm pleased to report that the Hertfordshire Safeguarding Adults Board carried out a review of the Council's responsibility to safeguarding residents at risk. Overall, the findings were very positive and showed the great work across the organisation in the last year to protect our most vulnerable residents. In particular, they picked out the good practice throughout the pandemic to prioritise residents at greatest risk, ensure that staff here were well supported through schemes like the mental health first aiders and delivery of the COVID community grants to ensure local groups were able to continue running safely. Finally, Mr. Mayor, preparations are now underway, though they are not finalised, for our celebration of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. To give you all an idea, on Thursday the 2nd of Tree, there'll be a tree planting ceremony proposed for Adeyfield Square with civic dignitaries. Be interesting to see who they are. The Parade of Colours through Riverside and Gadebridge. The council is planning to host an event in Gadebridge Park with live music, entertainment and the fair. There'll be a beacon lighting ceremony. On Friday the 3rd of June, there are no formal events, so there'll be plenty of opportunities for members and their residents to organise their own events in their own neighbourhoods. On Saturday the 4th, the Hemel Hempstead Old Town Traders Association are planning a street party in the Old Town, and we will be setting up the big screen in Gadebridge Park to watch the entertainment at Buckingham Palace, and the fair, of course, will still be with us in Gadebridge Park. On Sunday the 5th of June, in partnership with Riverside, we're organising a street party throughout the Marlows. The Old Town Market will be on, street party themed, I believe, and this will be a national day for street parties, so everyone is encouraged to host their own ones in their own neighbourhoods. We're looking at planning, through engagement with parish councils and other partners, we are looking at how we can engage with the Old Town Hall to see what part they can play. We're thinking of having a scavenger hunt, linking all these key events together, inviting schools to design art or artwork for marketing, and of course our comms team will play an important part in promoting all of this. Just as a word, just to be noted, that if anyone's interested in closing down roads for street parties, the deadline for that is the 21st of April. How very exciting. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. Any questions for Councillor Banks? Councillor Freedman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Banks, for your update. Question on the enforcement notices for the environmental crime officers. Obviously, one of the bad consequences of rolling out of this is we're aware of criminal elements that are masquerading as the environmental crime officers. Some are being as blatant to try to ask for on-the-spot fines from people, but one that I think is a bit scarier are the people who are trying to collect personal information from people about where to find high-value dogs to steal later on. I'm aware that we put out some communication about this, but what else are we doing and what more can we do to try to shut out these criminals that unfortunately this policy has empowered?
Councillor Banks, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Indeed, it was a shame that so quickly launching our pilot back in November that there were 3 or 4 incidents of individuals masquerading as enforcement officers trying to collect on-the-spot fines. The police were involved immediately, and the police and Enforcement Direct, who are our contractors, I've been working very closely to ensure that this sort of behaviour isn't ongoing. I have had, through comms, the uniform for the enforcement officers publicised so that people have an idea of what they should be looking for. And if I can remind members that all enforcement officers will be badged, they all have both Decorum Borough Council and Enforcement Direct logos on their outfits. They will not ask for cash on the spot. It is only online or remote payment. It's never on the spot. And indeed, I will make sure that if there's any further reoccurrences, that indeed the police take immediate action to deal with it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Banks. Any further questions for Councillor Banks, please? No? Thank you, Councillor Banks. Could we move on to Councillor Anderson, please? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Those members that keep an eye on the weekly list of planning applications submitted and planning decisions taken will have noticed that just before Christmas, the council received its first predatory application for major development in the Green Belt, with application for 390 houses or dwellings, I perhaps should call them, to be built to the north of Gadebridge. We also understand that we are likely to receive a second one, a much larger one, for 1,400 houses, dwellings, to the northeast of Tring next month. The council will consider those applications according to the proper process, so I'm not at liberty to express an opinion at the moment, but I suspect we can look forward to that one being considered in due course. Just for members' information, whilst I'm on those issues, the local plan task and finish group will resume as soon as there is progress on the local plan to report on later this year, so it's not something that's been forgotten about. Under the Hemel Place strategy, Andrew Percival has been appointed as the first chairman of the board. The next board meeting is Andrew actually comes to us having done an excellent job of the same role at Stevenage in recent times, and we look forward to Hemel Hempstead gaining from his experience. The next board meeting will be in February, and as advised to the Scrutiny Committee when they consider this, we are looking at how we feed the views of the quorum members into the process of the Place Board. Thirdly, Mr. Mayor, Hemel Gardens Community Project has finished the visioning workshops, is moving on to the next stage. Having completed the first stage, the director, Tom Dewey, is leaving us and is being replaced by Philippa Zeba. The South West Herts Joint Strategic Plan for 2038 to 2050. The last members' visioning workshop is due to take place next week, and the Regulation 18 consultation of the public will take place in the spring. Finally, Mr. Mayor, this does sort of stray a little bit into Councillor Elliott's portfolio, but I need to announce that a new round of additional restrictions grants is taking place. Unlike the previous rounds, we need businesses which have been particularly hard hit in the hospitality sector, etc., to reapply for new grants. We won't be automatically giving out those grants to people who've had them previously. We need those in the affected businesses to apply for the grants, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any questions for Councillor Anderson? Councillor Symington, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Anderson. I wanted to ask you, back in September, Herts County Council, as the lead local flood authority, apparently wrote to all the district councils saying that they would no longer comment on planning applications with regard to flood risk. I know this has been a bit of an issue with a few planning applications, and I want the recommendation from Herts County Council is that the local planning authorities pay for independent consultants to review an application, and I wondered if the portfolio holder considered this to be the direction that Dacorum Borough Council should go in case of applications which pose a flood risk to communities. Thank you.
I would have to say I'd look into this and get an answer for the member. Obviously, we would be doing something to replace the previous arrangement to ensure that we take those issues on board with any planning application. I know the council has an excellent working relationship with the various bodies involved in preventing flood, and I hope that will continue.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any further questions for Councillor Anderson? Councillor Allen, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Quite several months ago, there was correspondence from Sarah Whelan requesting the availability of councillors to a presentation about the Station Gateway development. As far as I'm aware, the trail seems to have gone a bit cold. I was wondering if we could have an update on where things stand with the Station Gateway.
Mayor, I'd have to look into that. It's not an issue that has been on my radar in recent time, but I will get an answer back from the member and I'll copy the council, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any further questions for Councillor Anderson? No? Then we will move on. Councillor Elliott, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Service has been extremely busy during December on the development of the 2022-23 budget. As part of the process, the Service have had to respond to local government finance settlement. The local government finance settlement for 22-23 announced prior to Christmas was in line with expectations, with a couple of one-off benefits, including an enhanced new homes bonus allocation and a further freezing of the negative revenue support grant. The statement unfortunately provided little indication of the medium-term local government funding levels, although the government has outlined it would like to prioritise funding toward the levelling up and funding for social care. The Finance Service also works closely with the Economic Development and Revenues and Benefits Services to support the payments required for COVID business support payments to businesses and test and trace support payments to residents. Moving on to the estates team, they continue to work with Public Health England, the NHS, Hearts County Council and other partners on the assessment and delivery of vaccine delivery sites, pop-up testing, vaccination sites and booster jab locations. The work in this area increased significantly in December as the desire for more vaccination sites and testing sites were increased. The team successfully relocated DENS into their temporary accommodation in Dakara House over December and early January. Moving on to the commercial property assets, although the last quarter has been a period when the 100% business rates relief for retail, leisure and hospitality sectors end, along with furlough, the service has managed to work very effectively with leaseholders, and the financial performance of the commercial portfolio has been strong in the first 3 quarters of 21-22, and to date the occupancy levels of the commercial portfolio remain very high. Going forward, the customer and business response to COVID recovery will be key to income performance. The government's support for businesses in 21-22 and 21-22 was significant, and at present support for 22-23 is unclear. The government's moratorium on debt collection is due to come to an end in March 2022, and it is unknown at this point in time what impact that will have upon income and void levels. Moving on to the Revenue and Benefits Service. Over the festive period, the government made several announcements in regards to additional COVID support, and the Revenue Service had to implement them as soon as possible. The first was a new Omicron Hospitality and Leisure Grant, aimed to provide grants of up to £6,000 per property liable for business rates in the hospitality and leisure sectors. These sectors have been deemed hardest hit by the implementation of Plan B restrictions. The Council received final guidance on the 7th of January and initiated the scheme in the week commencing the 10th of January. The Government estimates this will provide circa £1.3 million of additional business rate support to the businesses, but at present Decorum estimations are closer to £800,000 to support circa 200 businesses. The Revenue Service have also supported the Economic Development Team to roll out the next phase of the Additional Restrictions Grant, with this phase focusing on supporting those businesses that won't receive the Omicron Relief Grant but are involved in the hospitality and leisure supply chain sectors. In addition to this, the Government have announced an additional ARG top-up grant, and Decorum is due to receive £345,000. The Revenue Service will continue to support the Economic Development Service in developing policy for allocating those funds to local businesses impacted by the COVID restrictions. This team continues to play an important role in providing financial support to local residents, and having seen numbers of test and trace support applications reduced during November, these have been increased significantly to the highest levels experienced in December and January. The Revenue Service is working with the Department for Levelling Up Housing and Communities, plus software partners, to ensure the issuing of the 2022-23 business rates bills are on time and include the new release of 22-23. And also, finally, I'd like to express my gratitude to the council officers in my team who have shown great professionalism in helping and dealing with residents and businesses, and I class as the unsung heroes of the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Any questions for Councillor Elliott, please? Councillor Guest. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our commercial assets seem to be faring well against private sector landlords. What are our occupancy rates?
Thank you, Councillor Guest. I know it's quite dear to your heart about Rossgate, you being the county council for that division, and there's a few void properties there, but we are seeking to upgrade them and move tenants in as quick as possible. To your question, it's averaging at 95%, which really, considering it against the private sector, is a fantastic result.
Thank you. Councillor Guest.
Thank you. How many actual void properties have we got?
Right, okay, here we go. It remains reasonably stable, but our overall commercial assets are 901. We've got 30 void properties at the moment. Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Beecham, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In your presentation, you mentioned supplementary grants, revenue support grant. Could you maybe give us some idea of what the concept behind this is?
Thank you, Councillor Beecham. The Revenue Support Grant is a central government grant given to local authorities which can be used to finance revenue expenditure on any service. The amount of RSG to be provided to authorities established through the local government finance settlement. Thank you.
Councillor Beecham, you have a supplementary?
I do indeed, Mr. Mayor. The commercial assets appear to be supplementary. You mentioned that they are negative RSG. Could you please say what this actually means?
Right, okay. You did warn me of this, so I've managed to pull something together. The concept of negative RSG was introduced to enable government to reduce the level of funding paid to an authority when there was no further RSG left to reduce. The idea was that the negative RSG would net off against the business rates funding to bring total authority funding down to a level which, in the government's opinion, reflected its level of need. In this respect, negative RSG was only ever a transitional tool until each authority needs level funding is captured and baselined within the business rates future funding methodology. Government has previously stated that RSG will cease to exist as a funding stream once a new funding model is rolled out. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Any further questions? Councillor Allen, I think you were first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think Councillor Symington was first. The system seems to be throwing people off.
Councillor Symington.
Oh, yeah, okay, it's going to let me go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thank you, Councillor Elliott. I just wanted to follow up on Councillor Guest's question. So you gave us the figure for occupancy rates. Could you give us the figure for the number of tenants that are taking a rent holiday at the moment? Thank you.
I don't have those specific figures to hand, but last time I looked was probably around 20% were on sort of payment plans and being helped. But I will confirm that to you if I can. Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions, Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this matter comes to Finance and Resources OCR, I'm assuming you're the right person to ask. If not, apologies. The plan to put car park EV points in the borough's car parks, given that St John's Road car park is within 500 metres of an electrical substation, which is one of the key criteria of the survey done on the car parks, I was just wondering, and I'm not necessarily expecting an answer off the top of your head, but I was wondering if we could have an explanation of why it's not on the list of car parks that are being explored further.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Allen. It's probably not part of my portfolio. I think it's more Councillor Anderson's portfolio, but I'm not sure. But we will get an answer to you if we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Adeleke, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. In your presentation, portfolio holder, you said that the government support for local businesses for 22-23 is unclear. If we assume that the support may not be forthcoming or it might be limited, does the portfolio holder have anything in plan to support local businesses further, just to take them a little bit more out of this pandemic?
Right. I think I heard that from over there. I think we talked about business rates relief, Councillor Adeleke. Yes. Well, if we are talking about business rates relief, business rates relief is provided, has not directly cost the council any income, as we receive a government grant to cover this relief. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. No further questions for Councillor Elliott. Can we move on to Councillor Griffiths, please, regarding housing? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under tenant and leaseholder services, the rent arrears at 4.07% compare with 4.4% last year, which is an excellent performance given the previous 12 months. The supported housing survey conducted re the tenants' experience during COVID provided positive feedback about the team and the support made available. 2 families have been resettled via the Afghan LES resettlement programme. Both are doing well, and we're in the process of matching families 3 and 4. Under strategic housing, engagement with the DLUHC and HCC in relation to co-production for the Rough Sleeper Initiative RSI 5 bid is due at the end of February 2022. We have matched, like I said earlier, the second Afghan LES household in a 5-bedroomed registered provider property. And as said earlier, the matching of the 3rd property is currently underway. Liaising with the tenant and leaseholders and the development teams, we are finalising the gearing up of the proposals for the new build site at Coniston Road in Kings Langley. And the commencement of the allocations policy implementation project will now be implemented following the successful recruitment of a project officer. Under property in place, we have achieved 100% gas safety compliance in December, which is a very positive figure when you bear in mind it's usually a very difficult month to gain access. Ongoing issues with increased average times to complete non-urgent repairs, which is impacting our tenants, and Osborne's are therefore working on an improvement plan to reduce any delays in completing repairs and voids to work properties, and have onboarded additional suppliers to address the issues. The stock condition surveys have commenced,
but the access rate has been very variable due to COVID, so this is being closely monitored. And I would also like to highlight the Den Sleep Out. As you can see, I succeeded. Well, I was successful. I survived, whichever way you want to put it. That was despite the wind, rain, sleet, snow, freezing temperatures. At one point, it hit -2. So I would like to thank everybody who sponsored me and all the other people who sponsored the various people that were there on the night. I think they raised in excess of £30,000, which is a fantastic achievement. So well done, Dens. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Any questions for Councillor Griffiths, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the portfolio holder agree with me that the community safety teams and homeless teams working together have had a lot of success? No, a lot of success with the Tap to Donate scheme. I understand that so far £225 have been raised in donations through the tap and give machines that are located in the Marlows, and it's a worthy support for our homeless communities. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would like to congratulate both teams for the work that's been put in and for the extra bit of safety that it gives our residents and tenants and the support it can give to the poor people who are suffering from homelessness. Whilst on my feet, Mr. Mayor, I forgot to say, with your permission, I would put in the agenda, in the minutes, all the housing development programmes and where they are up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Councillor Symington.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. I wanted to ask about the rehousing of the Afghan refugees, which you referred to. I understand we've rehomed 2 families, and that's fantastic, but neither of them are from Hertfordshire. They are currently in Kent and Cheshire, or they were in Kent and Cheshire. And I understand we've obviously pledged to do 2 more. I understand that there is an issue about their status, so that Decorum has only pledged to rehome families that came in through the ARAP scheme, and there are 2 other schemes that that Afghan refugees have arrived in the country through and are being held. They are in a hotel locally. And obviously that's pertaining for much, much longer than everyone expected, and the children are now at schools and they're embedded in the community. So I have the request that I have is it possible for Decorum to change its rules so that it can rehome the other categories of people, so to enable people who are currently locally to be housed in one of the other 2 homes that we're offering them.
Okay, I'm currently at the moment giving consideration to that, but it's highly likely that any amendment would have to come back to this council because it was a motion of this council for LES only, ARP only. And we also have to bear in mind that we have a high pressure on our own. So what we have to balance is feeding that need, which is there, but also feeding the need of our residents who already live here. We may be getting other requests for other people to home for other reasons, where the options I've got at the level of authority I've got.
Thank you. You have a supplementary?
Yeah. Thank you very much for explaining that. I think you've partially answered my supplementary question. My supplementary question is, given that, as I said, quite a number of families are in a hotel locally and have been there for some months, would this council give consideration to homing more than 4 of them, given that the 2 that we've already offered homes to aren't even local to the community as things stand? Thank you.
I think all I can say is I refer the member to my previous answer.
Thank you, Councillor Griffiths. Any further questions for Councillor? I'd like to say something. From your report, you did refer to the sponsored sleep out for the homeless and the fact that the event raised £30,000. I'd like to update you on that and say that it was actually £50,000, which is incredible for one night's event. Thank you very much.
My apologies, Mr Mayor. I think I was giving old information. I do apologise.
Fine, thank you very much. Can we move on to Councillor Williams, please, for corporate and contracted services? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a couple of short items from me. Obviously, the Chief Executive referred to in her announcements the by-election in Berkhamsted and Boxmoor, and the service is preparing for those. Work continues on the Berkhamsted Sports Centre project, and there will be a consultation, public consultation launched in the second week of February with an online presence on our website, but also 2 in-person, subject to any issues that may arise, 2 in-person sessions in Berkhamsted will be drop-in, so people can come in, see the plans, talk to people and make their comments. And then finally, just an issue which is particularly dear to Councillor Madden's heart, but she's not here this evening, the High Barnes project, the latest issue there is being resolved, and subject to not having any unexpected issues arise, the work should be completed in mid-February. And whilst I'm on my feet, Mr Mayor, the question that Councillor Allen asked of Councillor Elliott actually falls under my portfolio in relation to EV charging points and our car parks. I'm not aware of any particular reason why Calper Road car park is not on the list of sites that are being looked at, but I will investigate and get back to Councillor Allen and copy members in.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any questions for Councillor Williams? Councillor Symington.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Williams. Mine is a quick question, refers back to my last question in November, where I asked about, and this is reference to the Berkhamsted Sports Centre project, what the plan was for the artificial grass pitches. And I think your answer was that you would give us an update next week. So I wondered if 2 months on you were able to give us an update now on what the plan is for moving those pitches. Thank you.
I don't remember that being my answer, but if Councillor Timmerson says it was, I'm not, they are part of the ongoing consultation on the project as far as I'm aware, and I think the response was given to the scrutiny committee that we are looking at possible relocations of the synthetic pitches to other sites within Berkhamsted, but I've not been updated on how those discussions have gone with those other potential locations. If not, then the intention would be to look at our plans for the site at Berkhamsted and relocate them within the redeveloped sports centre envelope.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Any further questions?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Can I start by thanking the portfolio holder for the speed at which he responded to my question at the last full council, which was way back in November, seems a long time ago, in asking for the conflict between the exit of Water Gardens car park and pedestrians crossing there. And I think within a day or so, there was a pedestrian crossing there. I'm really impressed. Thank you very, very much for that. So can I be cheeky in asking the portfolio holder to have a look at the landscaping at the entrance to the car park, as we've got new fencing there, we've got the new design of the car park, but there is just a mound of soil that is not looking impressive at all. And if there's a possibility that the portfolio holder could look into making that a more beautiful entrance to the town from anyone north of the Leighton Buzzard Road. Thank you.
Councillor Williams. Thank you very much. Any further questions for Councillor Williams? No? Then we'll move on, please, to Councillor Barrett, Environmental Services. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Under Clean Safe Green, we're working closely with the Estates Department on the commencement of allotment renovation works. The final batch of replacement street nameplates for this financial year have been processed and should be installed during January. The recruitment drive continues, and we're hopeful that the majority of vacancies will be filled within this next quarter. Parks and open spaces. Work has commenced on the new basketball court at Northbridge Park. The highways herbicide spraying contract has been evaluated and the contract awarded. The Cambridge Park COVID Memorial designs have now been received for the DDBA compliant footpath. And as part of this project, we've already planted 24,000 bulbs and laid over 240 square metres of wildflower turf. Trees and woodlands. Together with the Friends of Bunkers Park, we planted approximately 450 trees on the site. These comprised of 17 fruit trees as part of an informal orchard, with the remainder being native hedgerow species mixed to form a new copse. Further planting will occur at Bunkers Park, with more native species to expand the copse, together with further whip planting to the boundary. Whip planting has taken place in Cambridge Park, with a further 500 whips planted. 350 whips have been planted in Keensfield, replacing the plants that failed to establish in the last year, and fencing has now been installed to provide protection. During this month, we are due to receive delivery of 95 standard trees for planting on roadside verges and housing areas, together with 15 trees to be planted in Cambridge Park. Environmental projects. Our Christmas tree recycling day was a great success. Over 6,400 trees were collected and chipped by our team. 7 scout groups and the local St Francis Hospice were welcomed back after not being able to take part last year. Chippings were made available for residents to take away for reuse, and the remaining chippings will be recycled into compost. We held our second prize draw for our Street Champions volunteer group. Every volunteer who sent us a picture of their litter picking pick throughout the last quarter was entered into a draw, and we had 9 winners, all of which won a pizza voucher, which was generously donated by Fire Away Pizza. Plans for the first Decorum Nappy Natter on the 21st of February are well advanced. This will include a talk on all aspects of reusable nappies, together with demonstrations and discounts being made available. We will be actively promoting this event to local baby groups and nurseries. Further detailed information is available on our website. We are commencing promotion of our additional garden waste subscription service with extra bins for extra green bins ahead of collections, which restart at the beginning of March. Waste services. The driver situation appears to have stabilised, and we have another driver returning after only 1 week away. Christmas waste collections all went according to plan. The waste services are now back to routine schedules. We are now planning schedules for Easter and beyond, with staff confirming that they are willing to work over the Queen's Jubilee Bank holiday. Refresher training for waste services is ongoing, and driver CPC training has commenced. Thank you, and happy to take questions.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Any questions for Councillor Barrett? No, you got off very lightly, I think. Oh, beg your pardon. Sorry, Councillor Douris. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could Councillor Barrett just confirm that the name of the new cemetery that's in operation in Bunkers Park is going to be called Poppy Fields?
Yeah, I believe that is the case, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Fine, with no further questions, that completes agenda item 4. So we move on to agenda item 5, questions. There are none. Agenda item 6, business from the last council meeting. There's none. Agenda item 7, cabinet referrals. Councillor Williams, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oops. Turn the attention to page 17 of the agenda, the cabinet referrals. And I managed to lose the page. Cabinet referral from the Cabinet of the 19th of October, CA 07621 Rivergate Restoration Project. The result to recommend at the top of the page.
Seconded.
From the Cabinet of the 23rd of November 2021, 72 CA 088 of 21, Treasury Management Outturn and Performance Indicators 2020-2021, with a resolve to recommend at the bottom of page 17.
Seconded.
And continue on page 18 of 23rd of November 2021, item 73 CA 089 of 21, budget monitoring quarter 2 2021-22, with resolves to recommend numbers 1 to 4 at the bottom of page 18 and continuing on to the top of page 19.
Seconded.
And again from the Cabinet of the 23rd of November, Berkhamsted Leisure Centre with the resolves to recommend under 1 and 2.
Seconded.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That concludes Cabinet referrals under this section.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. No questions, right. We move now on to agenda item 8, overview and scrutiny committee referrals. There are none. Agenda item 9, changes to committee membership. There are none. Agenda item 10, changes to committee dates. There are none. And agenda item 11, exclusions of the public. Are there any members of the public present? Thank you.
Yep. I move item 11, exclusion of public, Mr. Mayor.
Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the Part 2 Cabinet referral from the Cabinet of the 14th of December 2021, CA 103 of 21, Building Control. We resolve to recommend on top of that page. This just is to tidy up the fact that our Constitution currently doesn't or is silent on how this appointment should take place. So this makes clear in the Constitution how that should happen.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. That being the final agenda item, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.